There is a silent cruelty in the idea of self-improvement, an unspoken implication that who you are right now is not enough. The modern obsession with optimizing every aspect of life has turned personal growth into a relentless pursuit, a never-ending climb toward an ever-shifting summit. The paradox is cruel. The more you strive to become better, the more you reinforce the belief that you are fundamentally lacking. And so, the chase continues, never ending, never fulfilling. Nietzsche warned us about the dangers of becoming what we fight against, yet the self-improvement movement often creates the very thing it claims to cure. What begins as an innocent desire to improve turns into an addiction to progress, a cycle that never allows rest. In the corporate world, this is called the hedonic treadmill, the idea that no matter how much you achieve, you adapt to it and crave more. You lose weight, but then you need more muscle. You earn more money, but then you need a bigger house. You meditate, but then you need to reach enlightenment. The finish line is an illusion, always receding just beyond your grasp. And what happens to those who cannot keep up? They are left feeling inadequate, failures in a game they never asked to play. The self-improvement industry thrives on this dissatisfaction. It sells books, courses, coaching programs, and endless strategies, all whispering the same seductive lie. You are not enough, but you could be, if only you tried harder. This is not growth, this is enslavement. Take the Stoics, for example. Seneca spoke of the dangers of ambition, not because striving is inherently bad, but because it often blinds us to the present. When self-improvement becomes an obsession, you are no longer living. You're merely preparing to live. Every achievement becomes just another stepping stone to the next. The irony is bitter. The people most dedicated to improving their lives often spend the least time actually living them. Social media amplifies this madness. We are bombarded with images of hyper-optimized individuals, people who wake up at 5 a.m., meditate, exercise, read 10 books a month, and seemingly have their lives under complete control. But this performance of self-mastery is often just that, a performance. Behind the curated perfection lies exhaustion, anxiety, and the quiet horror of never feeling enough. The self-improvement trap is not about becoming better. It's about never allowing yourself to be at peace with who you are. So, what is the alternative? Acceptance? Stagnation? The answer is neither. True growth is not about relentlessly optimizing every flaw. It is about understanding that the self is not a project to be completed, but an experience to be lived. Improvement has its place, but when it turns into tyranny, when it demands that you never stop striving, then it is no longer serving you. It is ruling you. We like to believe we are the architects of our destiny, that through discipline and effort, we can mold ourselves into something greater. Self-improvement feeds on this illusion. If you wake up earlier, read more books, master productivity hacks, and eliminate all inefficiencies, you will finally take control of your life. But what if control itself is the greatest illusion of all? The human mind craves order, yet life is inherently chaotic. No matter how much you optimize, unexpected events will always disrupt your carefully curated routines. You plan your future, but a single accident, a random encounter, or an unforeseen crisis can change everything overnight. Still, the self-improvement industry sells control as if it were a product. Follow these 10 steps and your success is guaranteed. But deep down, we know better. We know that no morning routine will prevent heartbreak, no amount of discipline will shield us from grief, and no level of productivity will erase the existential absurdity of life itself. Jung spoke of the unconscious forces that shape us, forces we do not command, but which command us. We tell ourselves we are improving out of rational choice, but how much of our drive comes from unresolved wounds? The need to be stronger, does it come from a genuine desire for health, or is it rooted in childhood insecurity? The pursuit of wealth, does it stem from ambition, or from a fear of worthlessness? We may optimize our habits, but if we do not confront the deeper forces driving us, we remain prisoners of unseen masters. And what happens when control fails? When, despite our efforts, life falls apart, a hidden danger lurks beneath self-improvement: self-blame. If success is a result of discipline, then failure must be a result of weakness. This is the dark side of personal growth. When things go wrong, we turn against ourselves. The weight of misfortune, which should be shared with fate and circumstance, is placed entirely on our own shoulders. We convince ourselves that if we had just tried harder, we could have avoided suffering. But this is a lie. No one outruns suffering. Take the case of extreme self-optimizers, the biohackers, the high-performance gurus, the relentless seekers of efficiency. Many of them, despite their mastery over habits and discipline, live in a constant state of anxiety. They fear losing control, slipping back into mediocrity, becoming less than they were yesterday. Their lives become rigid, dictated not by spontaneity, but by carefully measured schedules. In their quest to command life, they become enslaved by their own systems. Real power is not in controlling everything. It is in understanding what cannot be controlled and making peace with it. Growth is not about becoming a machine of perfect habits. It is about embracing imperfection without fear. To truly improve is not to tighten your grip on life, but to let go, to trust that you can navigate uncertainty without being consumed by it. Beneath the relentless pursuit of self-improvement lies a truth few are willing to confront. Most people do not seek growth out of ambition. They seek it out of shame. The idea that we must constantly be better implies that who we are today is fundamentally inadequate. And so self-help becomes a mask, a way to conceal the deep, gnawing fear that we are not enough. Freud would call this the superego at work, that internalized voice of authority that constantly demands more. You must be more productive. You must be more attractive. You must be more successful. The voice never stops. It is relentless, whispering that unless you change, you are unworthy. But who implanted that voice? Was it society? Our parents? The collective expectations of a world that equates value with achievement? Wherever it came from, the result is the same. We are not improving out of love for ourselves, but out of rejection of who we are. This is the hidden paradox of self-help. It promises freedom, yet it often deepens our chains. Every new goal, every new strategy, every new hack reinforces the belief that we must earn our right to exist, that our worth is conditional. And so, we spend years chasing an ideal version of ourselves that may never arrive, constantly postponing self-acceptance to a future that never comes. Think of the people who consume self-help obsessively. They read book after book, take course after course, attend seminar after seminar, yet their lives do not change in any meaningful way. Why? Because deep down, they are not actually trying to improve. They are trying to outrun themselves. They are trying to fill a void that no amount of productivity, discipline, or financial success can truly satisfy. Nietzsche warned against this when he spoke of the danger of self-denial disguised as virtue. Many who seek self-improvement are not striving to expand themselves. They are seeking to erase themselves. They mistake self-discipline for self-love, but discipline without love is just another form of self-punishment. And here lies the darkest truth of all. The self-help industry thrives on this insecurity. It does not seek to cure it, it seeks to sustain it. Because if people ever truly felt complete, the entire industry would collapse. No one would buy endless books or attend countless workshops if they genuinely believed they were already enough. And so, the cycle continues, generation after generation, a billion-dollar industry built on the quiet, unspoken shame of those who believe they are never enough. But what if the answer was not to change, but to stop running? What if true growth was not about becoming someone else, but about finally accepting who you already are? The moment you realize that you have nothing to prove, that there is no final version of yourself waiting to be unlocked, the spell is broken. The need to chase dissolves, and for the first time, you are free. At what point does self-improvement stop being about growth and start being a form of self-destruction? The line is thinner than we think. What begins as a pursuit of excellence can quietly turn into a war against the self, a war that can never be won. Consider the person who wakes up before dawn, tracks every calorie, optimizes every minute of their day, and still goes to bed feeling inadequate. They are not driven by a love for life, but by a terror of being less. Every new milestone only raises the bar higher, and what once felt like an achievement quickly becomes the new baseline. The cycle never ends because the pursuit was never about growth. It was about escape. Escape from insecurity, from fear, from the unbearable thought of being ordinary. But in the process, they become a prisoner of their own self-imposed expectations. Carl Jung wrote about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject and repress. Many who chase self-improvement are not trying to build a better self. They are trying to bury the parts of themselves they cannot accept, the laziness they despise, the imperfections they deny, the emotions they suppress. But what we resist persists. The more we try to force ourselves into an idealized version, the more we fracture internally. Growth becomes self-rejection, and self-rejection is a slow form of self-destruction. This is why so many burn out, why high achievers often feel empty despite their success. They have mastered discipline but lost connection with themselves. They have spent years sculpting their lives but never stopped to ask, what do I actually want? The relentless chase for improvement can strip life of spontaneity, of joy, of the very essence that makes it worth living. The tragedy is that self-improvement was never meant to be a battle. True growth is not about erasing weaknesses, but integrating them. The goal is not to become a machine of endless productivity, but to become fully human, flawed, complex, and alive. So what is the way out? It is not to abandon growth, but to redefine it. Improvement should be a process of expansion, not a punishment. A journey driven by curiosity, not by shame. A path that allows room for rest, for imperfection, for simply being. Because in the end, the greatest paradox of all is this: the moment you stop chasing the ideal version of yourself is the moment you become free to truly grow.